where the customer is always number one.
It's time for your SportsEdge.com Sideline Report with Todd Griffin. Talking sports and more here on 1580, 103.3 WPKY and worldwide at WPKYonline.com. Here's your host, Todd Griffin.
Good morning, everyone. The Sideline Report is on the air from 1035 West Main Street. Thanks for joining us. This is Todd Griffin of WPKY Radio and YourSportsEdge.com. Again, thanks for joining us on the show today. I got a couple of guests, one in the studio with us this morning. I want to welcome Carol Boyd to the show. And Carol, you're a former Caldwell County player, coach, superintendent. Which title do you like to go by there?
You know, I don't know, Todd. I sure enjoy whenever someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, Coach Boyd." Yeah. So I guess we'd go Coach.
I think all old coaches want to be called Coach.
I think so.
Also with us on the show today on the telephone, Chip Hutchison is going to join us. And Chip, good morning. How's things going where you are?
Good morning. Well, I think everything's going about the same in Kentucky. A lot of people staying home. I have the opportunity to work from home. So, although my wife wants me out of the house every now and then.
Well, what are you doing, though, without sports to watch?
Well, I'm not one to watch games from 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So, trying to occupy my time reading more than anything, but I'm not watching any of the old sports. I don't know whether anybody else likes to do that, but when I know the outcome, that just doesn't make it as pleasant.
It kind of takes some of the suspense out of it.
It definitely does. You know, I've noticed the story about the PGA and what the possibilities will be for them to resume. And, you know, several of the pro golfers said it's just not going to be the same with no fans there. That if you hit a putt on the 18th green to win a tournament, there's nobody to cheer for you. They say it just takes a lot away from it.
Yeah, that makes things a whole lot different for sure. We're going to talk about a whole lot of different things today here on the show. Again, Carol Boyd is with us. Chip Hutchison is here. Stay tuned. More on the Sideline Report after this on 1580, 103.3 WPKY.
At ABC Finance, we have always been committed to keeping our customers and our staff safe and healthy.
In response to the recent COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak, we have implemented several new policies company-wide to ensure the safety and well-being of all.
This includes limiting access to parts of our office to the public, isolating loan closings to one area, and frequently sanitizing all hard, frequently touched surfaces.
We've also asked our staff to please stay home in the event they are feeling unwell.
If you, as a customer, are unwell or are uncomfortable with getting out of the house, stay home. And please remember, payments can be made by phone or online at abcfinanceonline.com.
You can also apply for a loan on our website with fast decisions and quick turnaround time.
If you have any additional questions, please contact the office nearest you. Locations are listed on our website, abcfinanceonline.com.
Also, follow us on Facebook for the latest information. And stay safe from all of us at ABC Finance.
Let me ask you a question. What do you see when you look at your car? Do you just see taillights or your dog's tail wagging when you first brought them home? Do you see 4 tires or 2 tired kids in the back seat after their first day of school? Other insurance companies just see a car, but a State Farm agent sees what your car really means to you. So why not give it the protection it deserves? See State Farm agent Barkley Hudson in Princeton today.
Kentucky barbecue. There's nothing like it. You'll be glad to know that Noth's Barbecue in Grand Rivers is open for carryout. It's been a long time since you've been able to get that pulled pork from tender whole shoulders, cooked for 12 hours straight, the old-time traditional way. So you better call ahead, reserve your order, and drive on over to Noth's. When you get there, one of the servers will come out and greet you. Noth's Barbecue, where they've been pigging out for over 50 years.
Competitive pay, fixed schedules, an exceptional benefits package, loyalty to employees, and much more are all reasons why Bridgestone Metalfa is your home to build a career. The Bridgestone Metalfa family has never experienced a layoff, not even during the COVID-19 pandemic. At Bridgestone Metalfa, they put culture, family, and integrity first.
If you'd like to start a career at Bridgestone Metalfa, visit our website at metalfausa.com.
Back on the Sideline Report here on 1580, 103.3 WPKY. Todd Griffin in the WPKY studios with Carol Boyd this morning. Also, Chip Hutchison joining us on the phone. And Carol, I mentioned in the opening there that you've had a lot of roles. Of course, former Tiger player, coach, superintendent here. You were on the KHSAA Board of Control, president of that. So you've kind of seen sports from a lot of different perspectives. How does that kind of shape your view on things, all those different roles?
Well, I think, Todd, that each role is so unique, and they're all linked together, as you say, but they are different. And over the years as a player, there was nothing better than to be able to compete in sports. There's so many life lessons learned from a young age. I'll never forget Lowell Hobby when I was in Little League. It's the first time I remember really, really learning something about athletics and life, how they went together. I think we were down by 3 or 4 runs, and I was on third base, and I was 11 or 12 years old, and the catcher threw the ball back to the pitcher, and I stole home and was safe. And I got to the dugout, and Mr. Hobby pulled me aside, and he said, "Do you know why you did that?" And I said, "Well, I wanted to score a run." He said, "But we're 3 runs down." And he said, "That really does not help us. If you would have gotten out, the inning would have been over." And boy, I pondered that and pondered that. It was the first time I really connected actually life and athletics together. And I think it's from that point on that as a player I learned so much from the coaches that I played for and all the lessons that you learn, and hopefully to some degree was able to pass those on when I eventually became a coach.
Well, I think that's the thing about sports is, there are so many life lessons you can learn. I've always said, even if you're not a very good ball player, it's still a good thing to play sports.
Todd, I may be different, but I don't think so. I hear a lot of the professional athletes talk about the same thing. It was in Denver, and I heard Joe Theismann say that the greatest of all of his time was not winning the Super Bowl, was not playing at Notre Dame. It was playing high school sports with his friends. He said that was the purest level of athletics that he had ever participated in. And I tend to go back to that because when I think back about playing sports, and I don't think so much about my college days at Murray as much as I think about coming up through the Little League system and playing high school sports here. And the reason for that is I remember the days of practice, the interchange with my friends and players, and we were all linked as one. And those were special times. And it wasn't we don't remember the wins or the losses as much as we just remember the experience. Mm-hmm. And I would like to pass that on to all athletes out there. It's not about our successes. It's more about the experience of playing and the lessons in life and just the enjoyment of athletics as a whole.
Right now, the high school sports world kind of put on hold. And have you ever seen a situation like this where we can't play games?
No, for me, I go through a ton of emotions. Having been a principal, a teacher, a superintendent, thinking about all the coaches and the players that can't perform this spring and can't get on the field and do what they love to do, but also think about all those students that aren't able to walk the hallways. There's a lot more to school than just the daily routine of the learning. It's about relationships. It's about building those things for life. And it just hurts. It hurts, deep down to think that they can't experience those things right now. And I just feel for every teacher, every parent, every student, and certainly all the administrators out there that are trying to find some way to give some semblance of culminating into the year. I don't know how they're going to do that. It's extremely difficult, and I see superintendents all the time, and I know they're struggling.
Well, and when something like this comes up, and again, kind of in uncharted territory here because it hasn't really happened in our lifetime, I guess, but sports almost takes a secondary role, which I guess in the grand scheme of things it does. It's tough for me to say that sometimes because I'm a sports guy, and I know you're a sports guy too, but the reality is that there are more important things sometimes.
Well, Todd, I honestly believe that this, to some degree, gets us back to the purity of sports. We get a little carried away. We want more. We want to go to the next level. Every one of us would take a simple game right now. And for the purity with which they get to participate and just the enjoyment of playing. Maybe it's a lesson for all of us to step back and say, when we have something taken away, maybe we need to appreciate more the opportunity that we had. And I know the kids right now certainly would love to get out there.
Chip, do you remember anything like this coming up anywhere along the way that maybe you covered or saw where teams just couldn't play for whatever reason?
No, nothing like this. Of course, we've had, times there was a big snowfall when I was, I think, in the 6th grade, and school was out for about 3 weeks, and that was in the March time period, and it pushed everything back as far as in basketball playing the tournaments, but they found a way to get those played when the snow let up. But certainly we've never seen anything like this. I certainly agree with what Carol said about this is a wake-up call for us, that maybe for everyone to look and see the things that are truly valuable in this world when the sports goes away, when the entertainment options go away. I do think it's very interesting. Carol and I have talked about this a number of times, the way that the travel team philosophy and the travel team strategy has come into play, to where that becomes, for some athletes and unfortunately many parents, their only thought in life. And certainly travel teams are out right now, and I'm curious to see how quick those come back. It's my hope that they don't come back very quick. I hope everything else does, from the local level and certainly from the school level. But travel teams had, I think, become a problem in our society. So I'm curious to see what happens there. And since we've got Carol on the phone, I'd be interested. There's nothing worse for an athlete to know that you cannot play. And again, that's pretty much at every level. And I can remember when Caldwell went to the state girls basketball tournament. Carol was the coach the last time they went, and how that would have impacted him as his love of his players, to know that, man, we're not going to be able to go and play in the state tournament. We worked all year for this, worked really many years for this, and for schools like Caldwell County, going to a state tournament is a rarity because the big schools tend to dominate. So I'd be interested, Carol, in if this had happened when you were coaching the girls' basketball team, what your thoughts would have been and how you would have dealt with that in helping them.
Well, that's a great question, Chip. That I've thought about that, because as the girls' tournament got kicked off in Lexington this year, they only were able to play part of the first round, and I knew that, several of the superintendents whose teams made it this year and never got to participate, and that's a devastating situation for those kids that have worked all hard to achieve such a common goal. I think for me, I would have rallied around what we did accomplish, and I would have, because it's almost like losing the last game in the regional tournament or the district tournament, or whenever your last game of the season is. I think as coaches, we find a way to make sure the kids understand that regardless of what our record was, we gave the best we had to give that year, and there's something to be had from that, and we need to take things away from it. And I just think it parallels with the lessons in life. Each of us, whether it be you, Chip, or Todd, or myself, or anyone else that's listening this morning, we all understand there are just disappointments that come in life, and we have to figure out a way to get knocked down and then to get back up. And that's what I miss about coaching so much, It's not the wins and losses. It's just about the teaching of the life lessons and also learning as a coach, because I got taught so much when we had times like this when we couldn't win or we couldn't participate or didn't get to do this or that. It's an important time for everyone, just the participation aspect and then finding a way to take something away from it.
Yeah, when you look at the girls' tournament this year, I think Henderson County and Marshall County was the next game up, and they were literally getting ready to take the floor when everything had to be stopped.
Yeah, I know Commissioner Tackett very well, and Julian loves high school sports, and that Board of Control, every one of them is on there for the right reason, all 18 members, and they knew they were up against a tough situation, and they made the right call. They did everything they could to allow the kids to participate, but at the same time, it just wasn't right to proceed, and I know they did the right thing, but I know it just devastated them to have to tell those kids they couldn't take the floor in Rupp Arena to play.
We're talking this morning with Carol Boyd and Chip Hutchison. Need to get to another break here on the show, but we'll be back with more after this on 1580 103.3 WPKY.
This is Sam Meeks with Bella Marie Boutique. Thank you for voting Bella Marie as the best of Western Kentucky boutique 3 years in a row. We are so appreciative of our loyal customers. None of this would be possible without you all.
Your Weather Edge Weather Center forecast. We're going to see wet conditions today and overnight. We'll get a little bit of a break tomorrow, but then rain's going to move back in Friday night and continue at least through the first part of the weekend. Today we'll see a high of 66, tonight's low 49. Then tomorrow, partly sunny, high around 71. Then tomorrow night, a 70% chance of showers. That will continue through the day. Saturday, Friday night's low 53, Saturday's high 63. But again today, rain and possible thunderstorms, high around 66.
West Kentucky Real Estate and Auction normally holds monthly auctions at the Auction Center on U.S. Highway 62 in Princeton in the former Hancock's grocery store. Right now, things are on hold. Maybe now's the time to think about planning an auction for later this year. If you would like to have an auction or would like to find out how to consign at an auction, contact West Kentucky Real Estate and Auction, Wayne Boyd, broker auctioneer. You can also check out their website, westkentuckyrealestate.com.
Shop local, buy local, save big deals.
It's here. The Loyal Listener Big Deal Store is online and waiting for you to shop and buy gift certificates to local businesses. Go to WPKYonline.com. Click on Loyal Listener Big Deals. Here you'll find dozens and dozens of gift certificates. Some you'll even be able to redeem from your smartphone. Shop and buy 24 hours a day and save a ton of money in the process. Save on oil changes, dining out, haircuts, car washes, and more. Our store never closes, but you better hurry. You never know how long each deal will last.
The Sideline Report continues on 1580 103.3 WPKY. Thanks for joining us this morning. Carol Boyd and Chip Hutchison on the show today. And Carol, Chip kind of brought up a point there that about travel ball and high school sports and maybe some of the things going on with high school sports. And yeah, you've seen it again from a whole lot of different perspectives. Is there anything wrong with high school sports? Do they need to be fixed? Are there fixes? I mean, what's the state of high school sports kind of as you see it?
Well, I have been able to experience that from a much different perspective since I've been was on the Board of Control for so many years. I would go to the National Federation meeting, and all 50 states would be represented, and I got to hear all 50 states on various issues and understand that everyone has problems throughout the United States with regard to high school sports, and certainly Kentucky does as well. But as much as people complain against the KHSAA, I'm telling you that we have a great organization and we do things really, really well. Having said that, I think one of the problems, Chip brought this up, is that because of the select play, because of the travel teams, the way they're being coached and have been over the last several years, games have become much more of an individualized sport. It doesn't matter if it's basketball, baseball, or whatever. It's so much more based on the individual and what they can accomplish. An example is, kids come out now and they'll shoot a three-pointer from 25 feet, way beyond the arc. And if they make 1 out of 3, then it's like on TV. It's like watching the pros play, Steph Curry or someone like that. That's what they're looking for, is that one make. It doesn't matter how many misses. And coaches seem, for the most part, to allow that. And that is so much different than the time period in which I played and coached. I honestly think the game was better as a whole in the past, but I do understand that it's the wave of the future. You know, professional athletics is now so much individualized on who can perform this, and the teams don't work as well together as they once did, or at least that's my perspective. I may be wrong. So I think we've lost something with the integration of those select sports and that type of play.
Well, am I wrong in talking about high school sports? It seems like it costs more and more and more for schools to have sports programs.
They're extremely expensive now. You know, you see coaches still do not make very much money. A lot of people think they make a lot of money at the high school level. They don't make a whole lot of money. I remember being offered the head baseball coaching job around 1990 for $600 for the year. And so just to give some perspective on that, it's not like what we see on TV with the college coaches and these massive contracts. High school coaches still do it for the love of coaching and the love of kids participating, and they don't make very much money. So I do think that there's a piece of that the purity wants to remain at the high school level, but we're losing it to other things. When travel teams can wear the best uniforms, better uniforms than our high school teams, high schools have a hard time replenishing. Parents are paying for those uniforms a lot of times at the travel level. They don't pay for that at the high school level, or at least for the most part they don't. So it's very difficult for us to be able at the high school level to produce the type of supplies that they may have on these travel teams.
And you and I talked about that a little bit before the show, and I was guilty of that too. You know, I used to go to a ball game and you'd see the other team come out with brand new warm-ups, and you'd think, well, why don't we have brand new warm-ups? But because we can't afford brand new warm-ups every year, and some schools can. So, I mean, how do you try to balance that out, or is there any way, or is that even something that needs to be addressed?
Well, you know, and again, no one wants to go back to the era in which I played, and I understand that. I don't want kids to have to go back to that either, but it wasn't uncommon for us to use warm-ups for 10 years. You'd only wore them a little while before you played the game, so we wore our uniforms a lot longer. Honestly, I think they were made better, out of better material, and they lasted longer, and we were able to wear them longer. That's not okay in today's world. You know, again, the individualization piece. Kids nowadays generally are used to having their names on the back of their jerseys or their warm-ups, and it just gets more expensive, and it's just hard for high school budgets and school budgets to be able to keep up with that type of progress.
And I think in a lot of ways we're very lucky here, because a lot of businesses do step up and donate to the programs. And you know, we were talking earlier also that it's kind of rare that you have a community where there's always been newspapers to promote the local athletes. There's always been a radio station to cover games. And I've tried to tell people from time to time that doesn't happen in every community. Not every community has businesses willing to, pay this bill or that bill, or somebody there to cover everything and document it.
Well, Todd, I'm glad you brought that up, and I want to say thank you personally to our newspapers over the years, the Leader and the Times Leader, and to our radio station. What a wonderful job. I was so blessed as a young man, a kid coming up, and also in the school system all these years. You all have done, all of those people, Chip, thank you, have done such a wonderful, wonderful job of covering not only our youth sports and our high school sports, but covering our schools and the activities and all the things that are going on in such a positive light. We've been so blessed in this community to have had that opportunity to have that type of support that I don't think we fully recognize that until some of that is not here anymore. And so, we've been so blessed, and we're blessed to have any type of coverage in a town like ours in such a positive way. So I definitely want to say thank you for all the people that shared in that over the years.
Hey, Chip, do you know any idea how many games you've been to over the years?
Oh my, Todd, no, that's be a good exercise for me to try to go back and figure that up. I know I had quite a string of football games I did miss that spanned some 2 decades, but I'll try to do that sometime. And but Carol talked about you do it for the love of the game. I think we'll look back to you and the job that you did. Joey Randolph before you. We all did what we did because we love the community and we love the people in the community. And we wanted to do things that would help them, that would encourage them. I'm going to tell a story on you, Todd, that I think explains that and illustrates that so well. You and I talked years ago. You're covering a ball game, and somebody, let's say it's a football game. Running back makes a great run, gets some good blocks, and scores a touchdown. Well, if you're the other team, you're covering the other team, do you say that guy made a great run, or you say that our player made a mistake? And you always look for the positive in it. I saw a lot of newspapers that did not, and I think you always tried to build up the individual players, not unrightly. You did it for the right reason, and you were correct in what you did. I just see so many newspapers over the years that always looked, and they didn't look for what was good, they looked for what was bad. And I think that we always looked for the good things and did it fairly. So I applaud you for that work. It's we, as Carol said, we live in a different age, and when we talk about, I'm going to go back to travel teams just for a moment. I'm afraid that sometimes that creates in a young athlete the idea that, hey, I can go on, I can play in a Super Bowl, or I can make it to a World Series, where the reality, and Carol knows the stats better than I do, is that just a small percentage of high school athletes ever get to go to college. And we can look at Caldwell County. We've had very, very few D1 players. And then to go on to start on a college team, to be successful, and then to go to the next level is such a rarity in our day.
Chip, you were talking about positive support in the community. I want to throw this in real quick. Coach David Barnes and I graduated together, and we played football together and baseball during our senior years, throughout school. But when he came back here and became part of the community and came here as a coach from Davis County, where they had several high schools, as the years went by, he took the opportunity on numerous occasions to say to me in person, and I don't know how many times this happened, but it was many, many times. He said, I want to thank you for opportunity to come back here, because he said, you just don't know how special this is. He said, people don't understand what you have here, what we have here. He says, just like when we were in high school, we have people that support us. They want to take us to eat. They call and want to support in all different ways. He said in Davis County, we had to beg to get somebody to support us because there's so many high schools. He said it's a treasure. And I just relate that because he absolutely loved the support of this community as far as what they do for high school athletics. And he saw that and was able to relay that experience. And so I want to share that with everyone to say thank you for supporting all of our athletes and all of our sports the way you do.
And what an ambassador for Caldwell County David Barnes was.
Absolutely.
Need to get to another break here on the show. Got more to come on the Sideline Report, though. Stay with us. More after this on 1580, 103.3 WPKY.
Your WPKY Weather Edge Weather Center forecast is brought to you by Health First Community Health Center.
Your WPKY Weather Edge Weather Center forecast. Before you head out the door this morning, make sure you have your umbrella or a light rain jacket. We're going to see showers and possible thunderstorms throughout the day with a high around 66. Then overnight, a 60% chance of rain. Otherwise, mostly cloudy. Temperature dropping to 49. Then tomorrow, not looking too bad. We'll see a mixture of sunshine and clouds warming up to 71 degrees. Then tomorrow night, a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms, and that will continue through the day Saturday. We'll see Friday night's lows 53, Saturday's high 63. But again today, rain and thunderstorms high around 66.
Nominate your baseball mom in your SportsEdge.com Sports Mom of the Month contest. Presented by Joelle's Bakery and Cafe, GNC of Hopkinsville, and Save More Drugs.
Planters Bank, located at 208 North Jefferson Street, is locally owned and operated with a strong, sincere focus on customer service. Planters Bank has a diverse team of seasoned professionals in Western Kentucky and Clarksville, Tennessee. Since first opening their doors, Planters Bank has made a name for itself as an energetic player in the financial services market. Stop by and talk to the friendly folks at Planters and find out about the You Choose Rewards program. Planters Bank, member FDIC and equal housing lender.
We continue on the Sideline Report on 1580, 103.3 WPKY. Talking this morning with Carol Boyd and Chip Hutchison. And Chip, while I've got you, I do want to ask you about Scotty Edwards. He passed away last week. We got that word. And one of the best athletes, I guess, ever to come from this county. And what kind of memories do you have about the player that Scotty Edwards was?
Oh, wow. While I was certainly not an athlete, I do have great memories of Scotty Edwards. I got to know him, I must have been, it was before integration, and just was always very kind. But you talk about an athlete. Here he was starting running back on the 63 state championship football team. And I think the picture, Todd, that you carried in the football history book, of him scoring the winning touchdown against Fort Thomas Highlands. I'll never forget that. And he started on the basketball team that went to the state tournament, won the regional. And this was in the 1963-64 school year. That was the first year of integration. He had with the integration of Princeton-Dotson into the Caldwell County school system. What a lot of people don't know is that Scotty excelled in track. And track had, at that time, was nothing more than somewhat of an afterthought. Like, there was no attention. I don't think there was ever much of any track news in any newspaper that I can recall. And I don't believe Caldwell had a track team at that time other than Scotty Edwards. You never heard anything mentioned about it, but Scotty ran in the regional track meet and won the sprints. I know he won the 100. He might have won the 220. But at that time, of course, that being a spring sport, he qualified for the state tournament. To my knowledge, first person from Caldwell County ever to qualify for a state track meet. Well, they bought him a ticket to get to the state tournament, and so he caught the bus when bus service was very prevalent and a common means of transportation. So he went to state track meet on his own, competed there, and came home. I wish I could remember how he did in the state track meet. I don't believe there were probably any newspaper records of it because it was just not much much attention focused on him that day. But just an incredible athlete, just so quick, fast, could jump out of the gym. And Scotty was 2 years older than me and died here earlier this month. And certainly I have many fond memories of Scotty Edwards.
Well, I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When you look back through the history of Caldwell County, we've been kind of spoiled with the great athletes because, Carol, when you look at Caldwell County, it's not the biggest high school in the world, and Caldwell County is not the biggest county. But when you go back through the years, we've had some incredible athletes and some incredible teams.
You know, Todd, we really have, and I've had superintendents all over the state tell me, how do you all get such great athletes in Caldwell County? And, you know, it is phenomenal to think about the number of athletes that we've had come out of here. There have been so many great athletes, and that certainly has come up to present day. We've had so many recent great athletes in recent years, and we've been so blessed. And I think that we've had kids that understand that they have to compete with the Christian counties and the Hendersons and Hopkinsvilles and all the different groups. If they want to be able to compete, they're going to have to raise their level of play. And I think that they've been able to do that. People said when we went to the 7th region, or the 7th district, that we wouldn't be able to compete. Well, you know, we knew at that time that we had to find a way to compete, and our kids have just risen to the challenge. I think they've done a great job of stepping up and being able to do that. So I don't know why we've had so many great athletes, but we certainly have had quite a few.
Well, and you took back-to-back teams to the state tournament in the early 90s, and I think both of those years somebody else was probably the favorite in the region, but you guys got them in the championship game.
You know, Todd, those were special, special days. I never dreamed of coaching girls basketball, and when Mr. Rogers came to me and asked if I'd be interested, at first I said no. And the more I thought about it, the opportunity to be a head coach, I finally said yes. And my hat's off to those girls. That was as joyous time in my life coaching as any other time. They wanted to please. Whatever I asked them to do, they did. You know, I changed everything they were about in 1991, and we broke it down, and we were so fundamental and so basic. You would have thought they would have walked out of the gym on me, but they didn't. They just soaked it up like a sponge. And people always ask me, did you have to change your style, or how do you coach girls? I didn't change anything. I just coached them, and they just listened, and they performed. They were phenomenal. And I think that goes so far in helping us understand as an athlete, when you believe you can do something, you can do it. You may not do it every time, but you pretty much believe you can do it. And those kids, throughout my coaching career with the girls, they just believed they could do things that maybe they shouldn't have been able to do. But, boy, they did them.
One of those teams, I think, was 28-2, lost to Marshall County, and then lost at the state tournament.
Yeah, people kept asking that year. We won our first 23 games, and I think Marshall beat us in the final game of the season. But what people don't understand is we had the lead in the second half, I think, if I remember correctly. And Heather Hughes, we didn't go real deep with that team. We only had about 6 players that played a lot, and Heather Hughes got poked in the eye, and she had to come out of the game and couldn't play her the whole last part of the half, and Marshall got us, and everybody thought that would be the end of us. And a loss is no big deal. It's just, we didn't win that night. It's pick it up and be ready to go the next day. And the way they went through the district tournament and the regional tournament, of course, beating Henderson in overtime, after losing by 40 the year before, in that final, was quite a stepping stone, and that team accomplished something that was just pretty phenomenal.
You're listening to the Sideline Report on 1580, 103.3 WPKY, Princeton, Kentucky. And that's kind of getting back to what I was talking about. You mentioned 3 years in a row in the regional championship game, and we've seen other teams make runs like that. Lady Tiger softball team, baseball team, soccer team, I think won the region 3 years in a row one time on the girls' side. That's kind of unexpected when you're Caldwell County in a region full of Henderson counties and Christian counties and Hoptowns and Madisonvilles.
Well, the reason I know it so well is when I became superintendent is I would do a recap for the Board of Education at the end of the year. And I would always list accomplishments, both academic and athletic and other types of accomplishments as well. And I always would sit in my office and just marvel at the accomplishments of our athletic teams and our academics, because we were in the top 20% of the state almost every year academically. But I think academics and athletics go together. I think that they are inseparable when you think about it. It's a can-do type mentality in a system. And our kids were performing at such a high level in all these different sports. That means we've had great coaching and great kids who are willing to learn and participate. And, for Caldwell County, again, we're the envy of many, many schools because we've had consistency over a number of years that goes back now for quite a long time. And I'm so proud of all their accomplishments. There's so many individuals to thank, but they have done outstanding.
And when you look at it, state champions in different sports, some schools don't have any of those. We've got a list.
Absolutely. And, I don't know how other people feel, but you're talking about the 63 team, 64 basketball team. My brother Hayden was on that team, and I would look back at those kind of things myself and marvel at those accomplishments. The 1976 girls team that went to the regional tournament, marvel. And, I think when we look back to that history and say, well, it's been done before, now there's a chance we can make this happen. And, kids start to believe and they start to make things. Like you said, the soccer teams, the tennis team, the baseball team, the run that Coach Stallings and his team has been on has been unprecedented. And I love the fact that it's different sports. It's different sports that are stepping up at different times to keep Caldwell County up there as an elite school system with regard to athletics.
I'm convinced the run the baseball team had last year to the regional championship game is a result of the success those kids had earlier on earlier teams. They might not have played key roles on those teams, but they were in that atmosphere.
Absolutely. I remember when my twins were seniors and they beat, I think his name was Marks, the pitcher at Madisonville in the district tournament to win that district tournament over there. We talk about being in the 7th district, and that kid could throw. He was a great pitcher. And they found a way to win that game as seniors. They got to the finals of the regional tournament that year and lost, I think, 2-1 to Union or something like that. I told Bradley at that time, I said, Bradley, this could be the great stepping stone you have for the next however many years. Build on this. You just won a district tournament that over a great pitcher. You've got to take that success, and, man, he took it and ran with it. But I think it's things like that allow our belief system, and kids watch that, and they go out and perform it. They perfect it.
Chip, talk about some of the best teams you've seen in your time at Caldwell County. And, of course, I know a lot of people realize that you kind of started your newspaper career in sports a little bit.
That's correct. I was sports editor at Hopkinsville for 6 years, and that certainly, I think, was incredibly helpful to me. When I graduated from UK, my thought was, well, I'll go back and go to Princeton and work for a month or two, and then I'll probably be drafted. Of course, Vietnam War was going hot and heavy then, and I was offered a job in Hopkinsville. I had a fellow student at UK who kept pestering me to interview for that job. So I went over and interviewed, and they hired me on the spot, offered me the job on the spot, and I thought, well, I'm not going to take this. I'll be going into the Army. And my dad said, Chip, he said, you need to take that job because you'll learn a whole lot more from someone else than you would from me, it was such great advice because he knew that somebody else probably held me more accountable than he would, and certainly that proved to be true. So I had a great opportunity to see a number of incredible athletes there, and I know work with incredible people, and Carol has alluded to this. It's the people that you encounter along the way that make the difference, and it's the friends that you make from other schools. I think back to the wrestlers, and on a wrestling team, you can compete as hard as you can compete, and then the next minute after that match is over with, that guy that you've just done everything you can to defeat, you're there being friends with, and you associate with, and such an incredible opportunity for high school athletes to do that. Certainly some of the best teams, those two teams on the girls basketball that Carol mentioned, were outstanding teams, and that did defeat the odds to get to win a regional championship. I think that 63-64 football team, I mean, I think we need to realize there were only 3 classes of football then. Class A, Class AA, and then Class AAA. And AAA were the Louisville football schools, but AA included, you had to beat Paducah Tillman, you had to beat Caldwell in its first round of the playoffs, beat Owensboro, much larger school. Next, they beat Lexington Lafayette, which was the largest high school in the state at that time. Caldwell was a 22-point underdog, and yet shut out Lafayette here in one of certainly the rainiest and worst field conditions of any ball game I've ever seen. So that certainly ranks as one. The state football championship we had in '98 was a great team. Carol mentioned his brother Hayden that played on the basketball team. That baseball team from that time period was incredible. Hayden was one of the starting pitchers, was a star pitcher for that team, and they had the same obstacles. You had to beat so many larger schools to go anywhere in the state, but yet they competed well. Hayden was on that team. Earl Stevens was on that team. A lot of others that just were great athletes, great human beings. So Princeton and Caldwell County certainly have been blessed by having those athletes and those great teams.
Well, Chip, I appreciate you and Carol coming in today. I wish we had more time. I've got about another hour's worth of stuff I want to talk to you guys about, but we'll have to do this again sometime and talk some sports some more. Carol, I appreciate it.
Be glad to come back, Todd.
Chip, thanks for being on today.
Todd.
That's
Thank
Chip
you.
Hutchison.
I enjoyed it.
And that's Carol Boyd. Thank you guys for coming in again. That's going to wrap up the Sideline Report today. This is Todd Griffin. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Sideline Report on 1580, 103.3 WPKY.